It's time to take your business to the next level, the boss level. These are the premier business owner strategies and successes being utilized by the industry's top talent today. Rock your business like a boss, a VO boss. Now let's welcome your host, Ann Ganguza.
Hey everyone, welcome to the VO Boss Podcast and the Real Boss series. I'm your host, Ann Ganguza, and I am so happy to bring to this series Mr. Tom Dheere. Thank you so much, Tom, for joining me on this.
Yay, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited about this. This is going to be great.
Tom, first of all, it was so awesome to see you at the One Voice Conference.
Yes. Likewise.
I know you were just a guest on my podcast, and lo and behold, like 2 times I see you within the span of a month or two, which is really incredible, right? Sometimes we have to go to conferences to just meet in person. And so, I was exhausting that conference, but super motivating. And I know a lot of people who went to that conference are all like revved up and ready to go, motivated, inspired. They took amazing classes. And so I think it's a good time to talk about what do we do with all that amazing energy that we just absorbed in that conference, because I'm revved up, I'm motivated, ready to go. What can we do to, I guess, keep ourselves or keep the momentum going, Tom?
That is a fantastic question. And I know you've presented at dozens and dozens of conferences over the past 10 years, and so have I. And we go and we meet wonderful people and we present and we also attend workshops and panels, and we learn a lot, and we get to commiserate with our peers, voice actors and coaches and other producers and stuff like that. And then there's this glow.
Yeah,
this wonderful glow.
There is a glow.
And then you go home. And then for the vast majority of people that go to these conferences, it's like,
And then life sets in, right?
Right. I have laundry to do.
Yeah. Family. Yeah.
Right. Bills and auditions and stuff like that. So conferences are great obviously for education. They're great for networking. They're great for renewal of purpose, refocus, re-energizing. The trick is how to take all that positive energy and inspiration and revved upness, taking it home with you and turning it into effectiveness.
Yeah.
Because the positive attitude, while great, it can only get you so far. It's not going to get you home. You're going to run out of that momentum. Work. And now there's work to be done.
Interesting, Tom. Before we went to the conference, I think someone had actually created like a note sheet of like, here are the talks that I want to go to, here are my goals, or here's what I got out of it. And I thought it was a really great way for people who like that type of thing and they take a lot of notes to like write down your objectives. What are you hoping to get from that? And then what do you hope to do once you get home to put those lessons learned in place? And so I think that maybe everything should start even before we go to the conference in terms of writing things down and what is it that you hope to get out of this conference. And I'm a big planner, so I am a big proponent of, you guys should plan out what sessions you want to go to, look at the schedule multiple times, and just see how you can get the most out of the money that you've spent on that ticket of yours.
Yeah, absolutely. And different people at different points in their voiceover journey go to different conferences for different reasons. If it's, I've never been to one before, I haven't even produced a demo yet, I just want to see what this universe is like, great. If it's, this is my 15th conference, I've had all these demos done, I've gotten all this work, what am I going to get out of it this time? Or some people go because they specifically want to meet you, or they want to meet another coach or demo producer to see, I want to get in the same room with this person and see if we click, because I may want to work with you as a coach or a demo producer. And some go purely as presenters and, and then they do their stuff and then they get
present.
out of there. Which is cool too.
I think there's such a momentum to be gained by just joining forces with like-minded people and just renewing relationships, and that just keeps you going because it's so isolating sometimes, just what we do. And I will tell you though that the other day I don't even know what it was that made me think of it, but I think I was getting ready. I had a full day of students and I don't know what made me think about, oh God, what if I had to go to work for somebody back in my days of corporate? And I'm like, I could never do that again. So bosses out there, this is just a little segue. If you know that this is what you want to do and you end up pursuing it full time, I don't say rush into it with your eyes closed. And Tom, we can talk lots of strategies about that. But once you make that decision to go full time, do you know anybody who's actually gone back because they've been unhappy being their own boss?
I know lots of people who have gone back to a regular job because they just couldn't book enough
Right.
work.
They needed the money. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was
They
purely
needed the
financial.
work.
They're like,
Right.
I've been trying this and I just can't get enough work to sustain myself, and they've gone back.
Right.
I can't think of anyone specifically, but I'm sure there are people out there, because there are people who just like to be told what to do because then they don't have to think about it.
That's
And there's a
true.
level of security in that.
Yeah.
And I totally
That's true.
sympathize with that. I'm
Yeah.
not one of those
Yeah.
people. I don't do well.
Yeah, I could not go back.
No.
I can take
No, I
instructions from my
couldn't.
client. Sure, I can be directed, and then I want to get paid and be done with it.
Right.
It's, an
It's a different
interesting kind of
dynamic.
switch, a different dynamic.
That's a business to business thing where
Yeah.
you and the clients are on equal footing.
Yes.
There's no
Yes,
hierarchy.
absolutely.
It's you and the client trying to make this great finished product, which is the audio files that you're going to submit to send to them, or they're source connecting you through. But when it's I am in charge of you and I'm telling you what to do, and this is when you can go to the bathroom and stuff like that, it's like, I don't think I could go back to that.
It makes me think of, okay, it's similar to, I know I just went off on that weird tangent, but that happens sometime, bosses, sorry. But it was just a weird, like it just came to me, I was like, I could not work for somebody else. No, so I will do everything in my power to make my business so that I do not have to do that. I think that also was leading into that. But I think, isn't that similar to, let's say, I pay my money, I get my ticket, I go to a conference, I take these classes, I'm inspired for a new genre, I'm inspired to work with a new coach. And then we come back and oops, we're by ourselves, right? So now, it's very similar to what we're going to be talking about is we've got to take the reins and we've got to do the work. And it's now up to us, and we're not necessarily having that coach or that director saying, okay, do this, do this, do this. Now we've got all of this energy and this motivation. How do we cement that and start to just really move forward on that?
Right. The trick is if you want to be the VO boss, you need to learn how to be your own boss.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
That's
empowering to like be the boss.
That's tough. I am a tough boss. I'll tell you that.
My
That's
boss
for
is
sure.
a jerk.
My boss, I always say my boss is a bastard. Oh, I just said that. Oh, I said
had another
that,
word in
bosses.
mind,
Sorry.
but I didn't use
I'm
it.
not sure if we'll bleep that out, but yeah, woo, I'll tell you what. It's just, I've never worked for a harder boss, but isn't that true? Isn't that true?
Yeah.
I think we're so hard on ourselves.
I'm often pretty relentless. And I have to be because I have this bad habit, and it's called eating.
And having a roof over my head.
Yes, and not living in a cardboard box.
Yes, yeah.
So
I get
the
that.
motivation is like there's no net.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I don't audition for this, there's a 100% chance that I'm not going to book it.
Well, yeah. And I think that's what propels me for sure. You know what I mean? To get work done. I mean, it's the fact that I need to be able to pay the mortgage.
Right. That's a great point, Anne, is that different people need to find different motivations to stay motivated when you are alone in your booth talking to yourself. I talk about effectiveness. There's a difference between talent and effectiveness. There's a lot of talented, aspiring voice actors out there with interesting voices, but like I have an interesting pen. It doesn't make me an author. I own a wrench. It doesn't make me a plumber. So having talent
great voice.
doesn't make me effective because no one's going to get discovered. You're not going to get your big break. It doesn't really work that way.
It's what you do with that pen that matters. It's what you do with that voice that matters.
Exactly. And consistently.
Yes. Absolutely.
So when you get home from that conference and you've got all that positive attitude, that's great. If you can bottle it and put it on a shelf for later, that's great. But when you get home, it's about what can I do to be effective today, tomorrow, next week, month, quarter, year, 2 years, 5 years. And I'm not necessarily talking about writing a business plan, which is something I do as the VO strategist, but it's about how do I think about myself to stay motivated? How do I think about and understand the voiceover industry so there's a reality? Because that's the other thing. And as you know, people coming into the industry have no idea what the industry is. They just have this odd preconceived notion of what it is. I talk interesting. I got to just get an agent and then they'll just throw sacks of cash at me.
Exactly. And I think, you don't know what you don't know, right?
You don't know what you don't know.
And especially, not only is it a new industry for a lot of people, but it's also the fact that there's a lot of people who are very unhappy in their current job situation and want to get out of that, work for somebody else. But then working for yourself is a whole different animal. And that really is, I think, where the double whammy comes in. in for those people new to the industry, because not only are they trying to acquire the skills to be a good talent, but now they also have to have good business skills as well. And they're not used to working for themselves or having to go out and market themselves and get work and all those hats that they've got to put on.
Yeah, maybe 15 years ago here in New York City, I had a 10-minute meet up with an agent. I don't remember which one, but he said, tell me about yourself. And I talked about all the things I do. He's like, wow, you got a lot of hats. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, but you only have one head. And I'm like, yeah. So to be an effective voice actor, you need to kind of be the Dr. Seuss Bartholomew in 1,001 hats and have all those hats stacked up on. Some of them you can put on and take off, but a bunch of them you have to have stacked on your head at the same time, because there is no job description for being a voice actor. I mean, there is, but nobody knows what it is until you get here. And it's like unlocking these doors and moving these hedges aside and going, oh, I have to do that. Right. It's almost like a maze, which is the logo of the VO Strategist now that I think about it, helping you navigate the voiceover industry.
Absolutely.
So navigating the maze of what it means to be an effective voice actor and staying motivated at the same time.
That's the thing, staying motivated when you're doing something like accounting. Like for me, I mean, there are some people who love accounting, right? So there's accounting for me. For me, I'm like, oh God. Actually, I will tell you, Tom. So for me, staying motivated while I have an S Corp, right? And an S Corp is creating all of this paperwork for me. And it's just like, I need to either be educated about the entire S Corp thing or I outsource, right? So I think if I had to do all that paperwork and try to understand it all and to stay motivated, it would be very, very difficult for that to happen, and it may discourage me from wanting to have a voiceover business because of this paperwork that I continually have to supply to the government to support this business. But for me, one of my solutions is to outsource that, right? And make sure that I have somebody that I trust and can go to if I have any questions that can handle that aspect for me. And I will constantly get mail, snail mail, saying you need to provide this information, or you owe us this amount of money, or you need to prepay this, or whatever that is. And so I literally will just be like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of paperwork. So I will literally scan that in and send that to my accountant, which, by the way, I will say till my dying day, I will say my accountant was my very best investment for this business, because I can't deal with the numbers.
Right. Well, and that's a very important point, Anne, is that if you're getting into the voiceover industry, obviously you need to understand what does that entail on soft skills, hardware, software, marketing, money, and all that stuff. And you need to have an understanding of what your S Corp is or what this is, where that is. And then you can decide, okay, this is a skill I need to just understand, but I'll outsource it. Or this is a skill like, for example, using your DAW. You have to know how to use your DAW. You need to know how to audition, and you need to know how to record and clean up and save and deliver audio files. Some stuff is non-negotiable. You know what I mean? But
you need
managing your S Corp, right? That's another thing. Or if you're an audiobook narrator or a long-form e-learning narrator, do you want to hire an audio engineer to clean up your audio, or do you want to do that yourself? I always say, do it yourself first to understand how it works and why it works, and then outsource it. And I'm sure some of your bosses are thinking, I don't have that money.
To outsource, yes.
I don't have the money to outsource.
You need to invest your money to make the money. That's what I always start by saying, invest the money to make the money, but maybe not try to put yourself wholeheartedly into the business until you do have money that you can invest, because from any perspective, right? Any business, you have to have some investment money. I mean, it's not just voiceover. Just for some reason, it became this like, oh, we just talk into a microphone. How easy is that? I don't need to have any money or be prepared, or maybe I just got to buy a mic. And that, I think, is wherein the problem lies, where then you start to have predators in the industry that will sell that dream and people who will get taken for that dream. And without the realization that, they have to put things in place and make investments to do that. So let's kind of go back to, we've gone to a conference and we've gotten motivated, and it doesn't have to be a physical conference. It could be a virtual online workshop or whatnot. I just went to a workshop called Unstoppable You. It was a Tony Robbins thing, which was all about the motivation, But now that you're motivated, you've got to do the work, and you've got to maybe take a look at the hard questions and then make concrete steps to move forward. So it's like, I can ask the hard questions. I can maybe get through the answers, and they might make me cry, some of them.
Right.
And so I can do that, but now I have to actually do the hard part, which is moving forward. So what would be the first thing you would recommend? Let's say somebody that comes back from a conference or a workshop or whatever, and maybe a meeting with a coach, and they're inspired, they're motivated. What's the first thing that you would have them do?
The first thing that I would have them do is write down in severe detail what their perfect...
Severe detail.
Severe
Not just
detail.
Severe detail.
Severe
I like
detail.
That.
What their perfect voiceover day looks like.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Work with me for a second.
Okay.
What time of day are you waking up? What time zone are you in when you wake up? Are you waking up in a house, a cabin, a condo, a space station, a bunker, a submarine? Like, where are you waking up? When it's time to start doing voiceover, does the limo pick you up? Are you walking downstairs into the basement? Are you getting on a bicycle to go downtown? Are you going into your backyard to your custom-built booth? Are you going into the attic? Are you taking a bus or a train? And then when you get there, what kind of bookings are you doing? What genres or subgenres of voiceover? One or more? How much are you getting paid? Obviously, we all want to get paid as much as possible, but what is that actual number that you need to cover all of your voiceover expenses, all of your personal expenses, manage your debt, save for retirement, save for that college education for your kids, save for that car, and have enough to have a little fun.
And this is before you're a working talent, right? If you're just new to the industry and you want to get into it, let's say you're in the process with a coach and you're making demos, you want to project what genres. First of all, if you're working with a coach, you should probably have a genre in mind already.
Yes.
With a genre-specific coach, so you kind of know where you want to go. But putting that down, right? Even if you're not actually doing the work, as you were mentioning, okay, this is the work I'm going to be doing. These are the auditions. Even if you don't have audition opportunities yet, and you're still just working, put down that on the list because you want to make sure that you have the space for it and the time for it, right?
Right.
And the goal steps, the steps.
Right, exactly. And once you have that perfect day realized, written down in severe detail, you walk that backwards to the day, to the moment that you're writing that list. What are you missing between right now and that perfect voiceover day? How much money do you need? What training do you need? What tools do you need? What marketing acumen do you need? All of the things, big and small, knowledge, hardware, software, tangible, intangible, mindset to get you where you are and figure out what are you missing and what you need to do to fill those gaps. So when you come home from a conference, all motivated, try to figure out what the practical application of all the wonderful information that you just collected is. You know, we go to all these workshops and listen to all these panels and take all these notes, and some of the knowledge is immediately actionable. And others are for, you know, I took this genre workshop, I'm going to keep these notes and maybe I'll be ready for it in a year or two, and so on and so forth. Organize everything, because you need to figure out how actionable and practical everything that you need is to do to get you to that perfect voiceover day, and use the glow and energy and momentum of the conference that you just got home from to kind of build that foundation, build that scaffolding, create that structure. So when you get back into the day-to-day grind of trying to build or develop or nurture your voiceover business, you have effective systems of thought and effective systems of execution.
And let me interject also what I think is important is, of course, yes, you took that workshop on animation or whatever it is, promo, imaging, whatever it is, medical narration, I say, because I just did that.
Love it.
Or corporate. Yeah. And I think that you always have to keep your eye on the market. I feel like sometimes we become so blinded by our own performance because we're like, oh, I want to get really good at animation, or I want to get really good at whatever, commercial or corporate. But I think we always have to keep our eye on the marketplace, because if there's not a demand, or if the demand is not as big, and I'm always telling this to my students about corporate, it's a huge market, there's a huge opportunity there versus animation. Not that there isn't a huge opportunity there, but there's less of an opportunity there than there is in corporate. There is more of an opportunity in e-learning than there is in even I would say promo, of course, right?
Yeah.
Documentary. Everybody that comes to me for narration says, I want to do documentaries. And I'm like, well, how many documentaries do you think there are at any given time? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Compared to the 30.4 million registered companies that have a product or a service to sell that need a corporate narrator.
And need human resources videos, and need orientation videos, and need compliance videos.
Right. And I think that is something that we really need to take into consideration at all points in our business, because that will affect, right, when you're talking about here's where I am, here's my perfect day, here's where I want to be. I want to be doing animations on television or whatever that is, or I want to have a national commercial spot. That's all well and good. However, I think that you also have to take in account what is the market for that. I used to think erroneously back in the beginning, before I realized what the market was, I just need a commercial a day, right? Or wouldn't that be nice? And Tom, we're talking about real talk, real bosses. Well, okay. I don't know anybody that gets a commercial a day except for people who are maybe on rosters for Sirius XM, and that's usually for lower pay. Mm-hmm. But if you're thinking like, if I got a national spot, even one a week, right? I mean, unless you're an voice for a campaign, I mean, I love how you laugh. That's the perfect response.
I laugh because I thought I had to sound like James Earl Jones.
Right? I mean, yeah. And so you have to understand what's realistic for the industry too when you're jotting these down. So any education that you can get on that, right? Listen to podcasts like VO Boss. I mean, we've been doing this for 6 years, right? Talking about markets and business. And Tom, you've been doing, how many years have you been doing business consulting and strategizing?
Over 10 years.
Yeah.
Now. Over 10 years.
And specifically in our industry. And so, guys, look, I'm not saying, of course you should come to us. But I mean, we've been doing this for a long time. We've watched the market evolve. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I want to point it out and say that this is so important for us to have in consideration in our step-by-step process of here's where we are, here's where we want to be. Now, if I want to be a commercial VO artist, well, maybe I want to think about another genre as well to add in to supplement those days when I don't get the national campaign every day. And I'm not trying to crush your dreams, guys. That's just not it. But this is a dose of reality, right, Tom?
Oh, yes.
Our whole series is based on let's talk real, right?
Yeah, the reality is that you may be good at something you don't like, and you may not be good at something you do like. A lot of people are drawn to the industry because they love cartoons and video games, and a lot of them may not be good at it. But they may find out that they are good at corporate or e-learning, which is a far more, to your point, stable form of voiceover income. Because when it comes to effectiveness, the bottom line of effectiveness as a voice actor is you're able to make money. You're able to develop a revenue stream.
And
develop
make the payments that you need to make, right?
Develop any revenue stream you can in any genre, whether you like it or not. And I always say, all genres of voiceover is storytelling.
Oh, agreed. Completely agreed.
I get my storytelling jollies out of any voiceover genre. I don't care.
Whether you're teaching statistics, right? Or you're narrating corporate responsibility or HR policies, you are absolutely a character and you are acting. And so that is a requirement. I mean, baseline requirement, especially now. When we talked about this in our last podcast, it is such a requirement for us to be the actors that we are called to be. I mean, and that includes all genres. That's the reality. That's the real talk. The real talk is you've got to invest in yourself, in developing those skills and getting good coaching. And not just taking acting classes. I know everybody would say take an acting class, and I think that's wonderful too. But you've also got to take acting classes as they pertain to voiceover as well.
Yes, there's a crossover. I mean, I always say improv classes are extremely important because it gives you the ability to make strong decisions quickly while you're narrating your copy. But to an end, there are people who do improv for voiceover and acting for specifically for voiceover. It's a very specific skill. There's very specific muscles that you need to flex to do voiceover as opposed to on camera or as opposed to theater.
I'm all about teaching the acting for narration. So now we've come back from the conference. We're motivated. We've written down our perfect voiceover day, and then we've worked backwards to the steps. And so what would be next after that? We probably need to take time to evaluate whether we've accomplished those steps, right?
Absolutely.
Once we've written them down and we've developed our to-do list, now we've got to go back maybe in a week or so at the end of the day and say, did I accomplish my tasks?
Yes. Self-evaluation and self-reflection is one of the most important skill sets to be an effective voice actor, because you don't have, unless you're part of my mentorship program or you're mentoring with Anne, you are working in a vacuum. You need to develop the ability to metacognate, which is the ability to stand outside of, thank you, the ability to stand outside of yourself look at yourself objectively and say, did I do what I assigned for myself? Did I do it well? If I didn't do it, why didn't I do it? Was there a logistical problem? Was there a financial problem? Was there a motivational problem? And find out why you do what you do, how you tick. And there's a time to be kind to yourself, and there's a time to be tough on yourself.
I think I'm always tough on myself, but you're right.
Yeah, you have to be able to do both because we're all human. We all have different energy levels and emotional states that fluctuate constantly throughout the day, week, month, year, decade. And we need to be accommodating for that. Oh, Mercury's in retrograde today, so I'm not going to get my invoicing done.
Oh, technology sucks. Oh,
technology sucks. You know what I mean?
Mercury in retrograde,
But if you find yourself making excuses for yourself about why you're not doing things, then you are not being effective because I have an action plan.
That's a whole nother podcast right there,
Yeah,
Tom.
I have my action plan right here, and I don't check off every single box. I get about 80% of my action plan stuff done every month, dating back to 2006.
Do you have records from back then?
I have a binder right here with every single one of these. So January 2006
I love it.
was my first printed one, and I've done 12 a year since 2006, and it's in this binder right over here.
It does not surprise me that you love numbers, too.
I love numbers.
Right? Now, I'm not so much, although I will share it, my book is out there, but I have my to-do list that I love to cross things off on.
Yeah.
And I have my planner where I like to write my goals down. I'm not always as good as I propose to be, but yeah, I think that's super important. But wow, what a great conversation. I want to talk to you in more detail about a lot of these steps because I think they're super important in our series. So, Tom, thank you so much for joining me for our first in a series of Real Bosses.
Yeah.
So, guys, I have a simple mission for you, but one that has big impact. 100 voices, 1 hour, $10,000. 4 times a year. Do you want to know what I'm talking about? Visit 100voiceswhocare.org to find out more and to join us. And big shout out to our sponsor, IPDTL. We love IPDTL. We love connecting with bosses like Tom and myself. Find out more at IPDTL.com. Bosses, have an amazing week and be real bosses. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Join us next week for another edition of VO Boss with your host, Ann Ganguza. And take your business to the next level. Sign up for our mailing list at voboss.com and receive exclusive content, industry revolutionizing tips and strategies, and new ways to rock your business like a boss. Redistribution with permission, coast-to-coast connectivity via IPDTL.